Who is Carter Yakemchuk? We will be attempting to answer that question here as we begin our NHL draft profiles, which you can view on YouTube as part of the NHL Prospects playlist on the Locked On Wild channel. We will start with Scott Wheeler, who ranked his top 32 prospects in the NHL draft, and Yakemchuk is right at number 13, which is where Tankathon has the Minnesota Wild selecting the right-handed defenseman who is 6'3" in that spot. Here's what Wheeler has to say about Carter Yakemchuk. One of the highest scoring and most penalized draft-eligible WHL defensemen in recent WHL history. Yakemchuk broke the rare 30-goal, 70-point benchmarks and also sailed past 100 penalty minutes with the Hitmen, who missed the playoffs this year. That is a year after he scored 19 goals, third among WHL defensemen on a middle-of-the-pack team, and was the only 2024 draft eligible to make one of the WHL's All-Star teams when he was named a Central Division second All-Star last season, which was important considering he was only a couple of weeks away from being eligible for the 2023 draft. Wheeler thought he was mostly unnoticeable at the U18 Worlds for Canada a year ago, but part of that was his role and usage, and he looked completely himself in an even greater role on another lackluster team this season. Led by his instincts, plenty of confidence, and legit skill for a D his size, he generated a lot from the back end for a Hitmen team that generated little. While his game in the WHL does come with some give and take, he's got pro size, a pro shot, which is maybe an understatement given his gaudy goal totals, and an attack mentality that is complemented by an active disposition to eagerly jump off the line or into the rush, and also a developing sense for when to hold it or hold back or outlet it. He also protects the puck extremely well for a defenseman, which allows him to make the most of his decisions to involve himself in the play around the offensive zone, holding pucks past and away from reaching defenders and sometimes dazzling one-on-one. It's not uncommon to see him take a puck to the inside off the wall, and while I'd say he's a good but not great defender, he's got the size and the tools to take the steps he needs to be to there, and he plays really hard at both ends. Would like to see his skating, which is fine but not a strength, improve, particularly from a standstill where he can be a little slow out of the blocks. There were games this season in which he dictated terms with his offense and physicality, really taking charge on the ice. If he can get a little quicker and continue to mature in his decision-making, he's got real upside. After bouncing between the back of my second tier and the front of the third tier throughout the season, though I ultimately settled on the latter, there's a clear group of 6 in this draft for Wheeler, but he's also clearly the 6th. His handedness might help him go a little earlier than 1 or 2 of these have that Wheeler has in front of him. We will go to the hockey writers. And here's the thoughts from Logan Horn on Carter Yakemchuk, who is ranked. Here are the rankings, at least consensus. Daily Faceoff has Yakemchuk the 12th prospect in this draft. Bob McKenzie of TSN has him 12th as well. Corey Pronman of The Athletic has Yakemchuk 3rd. The hockey writers, their panel has 15th, 20th, and 9th. So here's what Horn has to say. Carter Yakemchuk is one of the oldest first-year eligible prospects in the 2024 draft class, being just a few days too young to make the cut for the 2023 draft. Horn is of the belief that he would have been a first-round pick in last year's draft had he been eligible, and is a firm believer that he'll be taken within the first 10 picks of this year's draft. Yakemchuk is a big offensive defenseman with a right-handed shot and great skill with the puck. He was phenomenal for the Calgary Hitmen this season, a team that seriously lacked offensive firepower. As a result, Yakemchuk sometimes simply decided the team needed some offense and was sliced through the entire opposing team to create a great chance off the blue line. Puck skills are one thing in situations like this, but another reason he is so successful while cutting through traffic is how well he protects the puck. Standing at 6'3", Yakemchuk's reach serves him well, and he's great at manipulating checkers' sticks while under pressure. He's also a major goal-scoring threat from the blue line where he can score with a heavy and accurate point shot. Yakemchuk isn't the most agile skater, but his top speed is solid, and that when combined with his reach, makes him a solid rush defender, even when he overcommits in the offensive zone. He has the willingness to battle on defense and boxes out opposing forwards well, not giving up an inch around the crease. Yakemchuk is a great physical player at the junior level. While his skating is a very minor concern in Horn's eyes, I'd say the biggest question surrounding Yakemchuk is if his brain will be able to keep up in the NHL. He plays at a high pace decently well, but his decision-making is what gives me pause at times. It usually manifests itself in the offensive overcommitment and leaning a bit too hard into being the lead offensive creator for the Hitmen. I do think some of his questionable decision-making could be reduced on a better team where he can take a little bit of a step back and allow his teammates to lead the push on offense a bit more. However, this is the style he's likely being asked to play for a junior team in need of any amount of dynamic offense it can get. Last season, Yakemchuk had the third most goals among WHL defensemen with 19. This year, he led all defensemen league-wide in goals with 30. That number makes him the first WHL defender to score at least 30 goals in their first draft-eligible season since Ian White did it back in the 2001-2002 season 22 years ago. Yakemchuk scored 71 points in 66 games, which made him the team's second highest scorer despite being an 18-year-old defenseman. He also finished the regular season as the fifth highest scoring defender in the WHL, behind players like Luka Cagnoni and Denton Matejchuk. Draft projection. There is a consensus top group in this year's draft class that is developing, made up of either 12 or 13 players, depending on who you ask. Yakemchuk is in that group according to the vast majority of prospect evaluators, but Horn thinks he'll go even higher than that on draft day. His offensive potential should be enough for him to easily be a top 10 pick, considering his size and position, and Yakemchuk thinks he will end up as a top 6 pick in the 2024 draft, given his dynamic offense, size, and position. Okay, so Horn thinks he will be drafted a little higher than where the Athletic has him at 13. But the things that jump off the page for me is the size, the offensive ability, and the fact that it's mentioned that he is a lot of the areas in which he receives demerits for are because the team that he's on is bad. Like the fact that Yakemchuk is being asked to do probably more than he should because the team is bad eases those concerns for me, because the hope then is that when he goes to an NHL team, and we got to think about it this way. You are drafting somebody, if you draft a defenseman, you're drafting somebody that you're likely going to pair with Brock Faber if you get a high-end defenseman in this first round. So Yakemchuk being an offense-first defenseman, not afraid to step up in the rush, with the ability to kind of push the pace himself, that's very appealing considering what the Minnesota Wild have on their back end right now. And you think about not only this, but some acumen potentially on the power play. If he was the pick at 13, there's a lot to like about what Carter Yakemchuk brings to the table. And so if he is the pick for the Wild at 13, no matter what level of hockey you're at, whether it be at the high school level or all the way up to the WHL, to the KHL, you name it, 30 goals is impressive. 30 goals is an eye-turning number for any player, let alone a defenseman. And so the offensive skill is extremely tantalizing with Carter Yakemchuk, and also the fact that he is 6'3". Those are the reasons that I think he would be a good pick at number 13. And so if Carter Yakemchuk is the pick at 13, welcome in to the Minnesota Wild organization.